Welcome back. We're now delving into our discussion on Monday Special tonight on internet violence against children. Use the hashtag MondaySpecialKE to weigh in on the discussion. Let's introduce you now to my panelists. On my far left, we have Catherine Kimotho, who is a child protection specialist with UNICEF. And then right next to me, we have Joseph, who is 16 years old. And of course, the other teen who is joining us on set today to talk a little bit more about their experiences online. We have Jemima, who is 13 years old. I'd like to put a disclaimer that both of them have been allowed to be here by their parents and wanted to share their experiences about what teenagers are facing online in Kenya. And finally, we have Lillian Kariuki, who is Executive Director of Watoto Watch Network. Thank you all so much for coming here and shedding light on this subject. Before we hear from Joseph and Jemima, maybe I'll start with you, Catherine. How would you describe internet violence?
I think internet violence is defined in many ways. Number one, we look at issues of bullying. Children and young people are bullied in the internet by their own peers or by adults, people they know and people they don't know, and this really affects their emotions. We also have cases where we see children and young people being exposed to inappropriate content, what we normally call pornography, and some of them are even lured into performing live streaming of themselves when they are like naked, and this material is reproduced, and sometimes they are not aware that it's gonna be used to develop even pornographic material. We also have grooming, where adult or pedophiles come out to children, they befriend them and young people, and then later they use them for commercial sex work, and even, like I was saying, just to show their bodies inappropriately.
Okay.
Yes.
And maybe then, Lillian, you can weigh in on that, because you've spent a fair bit of time interacting with teens in Kenya on their internet use. How common is what Catherine is describing, pornographic content that teens take a look at, and even them being groomed for things like prostitution and the like? What have you seen or heard when you interact with teens?
The number one main issue that young people complain about in Nairobi, in Kenya, is cyberbullying, where we've had a lot of cases of young people saying, you know, someone has posted something on the internet and someone has written something very nasty back. We've also had experiences of young people themselves posting photos of themselves naked on the internet in return for money, and it ends up really badly because there are cases of blackmail that we've had. And, you know, once a photo is posted on the internet, as much as we get the reports, we cannot get the photo back for you. The damage is done. The damage is done,
yeah. And some people think that this is an issue that only affects a certain demographic. Does this affect people across the board, whether it's, you know, Kenyans living in middle class or informal settlements? What have you witnessed as the trend of who this affects the most?
In regards to sexual exploitation on the internet, online, we've seen children who have their phones, but we've also seen children who don't have phones who've been exploited. We've had a case where children are invited into a house by a person, and they're told to sit in front of a computer via Skype, and they're told to perform acts sexually. And there are people in other countries watching, and we had this incident around 2014 August, where we had kids between the age of 6 years and 10 years, boys, who actually went through this. They were called upon by a white male, and they were told to perform these acts. They were being shown pornography and told to act them out. So it is actually happening, regardless of whether you have a phone or you are using someone else's phone, or exploitation can happen in so many ways.
Okay. Yeah. We'll come to you a little later in terms of at least solutions and legislation. Maybe now I can bring in Jemima and Joseph, and thank you for being here to talk about this. When did you start using the internet? How old were you?
I was 10.
You were 10?
Yeah.
Who introduced you to it?
My friend.
Okay. And so what was the first thing that you looked for online? Was it music? Was it movies? What do you remember as the first thing that you used the internet for?
The first thing I used the internet for was music.
Okay, to just watch music videos.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we're talking about how the internet can affect the lives of teenagers and young people. Have you had any negative experience when you've gone online before?
No.
You haven't?
Yeah.
Earlier on you were saying that there was one incident about you meeting someone online and they said something nasty to you. Could you share that a little bit with me? What exactly happened?
The person said that he doesn't like black people.
Yeah. So this was a white person who was from some other country.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
I felt offended. I felt less of a person, and it was really offending.
You got offended. Before I come to you, Joseph, so you started by watching music videos.
Yeah.
How did you then end up having a conversation with this person? Did you join like a chat forum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Teen Chat.
Teen Chat.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to learn about Teen Chat from you in just a moment, Lillian. Joseph, what about you? When did you start using the internet?
I think when I was about 8.
How did you start using the internet when you were 8?
I used to download games on my father's phone and just play them.
Okay, so it was pretty innocent.
Yeah.
Did you ever sort of venture in or be exposed to any dark side of the internet after that?
Yeah, I guess when I joined Facebook, like in class 8 there.
Yeah.
I joined Facebook, that's when started, like, because there are ads and everything, you start seeing different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are some of the experiences that you've had that have made you a little bit concerned about being a teenager online?
Personally, I haven't had really any experience, but I've witnessed cyberbullying on Instagram, I think 2 years or a year back, whereby someone would get pictures, embarrassing pictures of other people and post them on Instagram and then start trolling them and putting insults and basically flaming.
Do you know what that did to the subjects of this attack?
I think they felt really bad and embarrassed at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How hard is it being a teenager in Kenya and having access to the online space? Do you ever feel pressure to maybe do things or say things online that you wouldn't usually do?
At times, yeah, you feel it, but as long as you know how to use it properly and you understand your boundaries, it's actually just fine.
Okay. You know, Catherine and Lillian, you've probably heard some of these stories before. First of all, Teen Chat, is it safe? Doesn't sound safe.
I think all platforms have their positives and their negatives in regards to chatting. What you need to know is this: if something goes wrong when you're on the internet, there's always a report button. Okay?
Yeah.
The thing is, you need to figure out how to report.
Yeah. But is it effective?
It is. In regards to, let me talk on, for example, Facebook. Within a couple of hours, 2 hours, if it's a case in regards to cyberbullying, they do take it down. And if, you know, bullies don't stop, they will get on another platform or they'll open another page and continue.
Yeah.
Now, for such a case, you need to escalate it to, for example, the cybercrime unit, where they can actually pin down exactly the person who's harassing you on the internet.
How easy is it to do that as Joseph and Jemima using the internet to escalate it to that level? Is it that straightforward?
Reporting to the cybercrime unit, it is. First, we've got you can go through Communications Authority. There's a national response team where you can write to them or call them and, you know, tell them your concerns. And from there, they'll take it, you know, they'll take it forward to the cybercrime police, because they're the ones who are mandated to do the investigations, and they'll be able to actually pinpoint who is harassing you online.
You know, Catherine, just following up on what Lillian is saying, legislation-wise, is there any law that protects children from trolling and cyberbullying and even being exposed to this content?
I would say directly no, because this is an emerging issue, but generally as a protection issue, children are protected by the Constitution, Section Article 53. We also have the Children's Act. But what I know is that there are many efforts that are happening. The Children's Act is being written afresh, and this is one of the issues that has been identified as an emerging one. We also have the ICT policy and the cybercrime and security bill, which is in Senate. And that one actually recognizes that there is child online bullying, child online abuse and protection and exploitation. And so there are efforts there. And within the National Plan of Action for Children for the country, it is one of the issues that is covered. So I think there's progress. There's progress, and the Communication Authority of Kenya, sometimes, I think last year they started a campaign on on sensitizing the public on this issue. So there are efforts there, but we still don't have proper legislation to protect children online.
So you said earlier, we spoke and you talked about attending a conference that focused on, and correct me if I'm wrong, child safety online. What did you learn that we can adopt as a country to protect Jemima, Joseph, and all the other teens who are online in Kenya?
Depending on, I think in any other platform, there are ways that you can, you know, report issues, that you can ensure that you are safe. But the thing is this, you need to be aware. If I'm online, what can go wrong? Because things will go wrong. But how do I protect myself from this before you get on any platform? So that if anything happens, how do you report? What to do next?
Jemima, maybe let me ask you and Joseph that. Like now you still use the internet, right?
Yes.
Do you have information on what can happen? Who do I talk to? Do you have that information?
No.
Not really? So you kind of just, and what about you? Is it the same?
I actually have information. I attended a training camp by I think Web Rangers Kenya like last year. It was just a few schools, and they showed people how to use the internet, how to make a secure password, username, how to protect yourself online.
What did they tell you about how to protect yourself online?
They just basically, they had something called a grammar rule, whereby if you're posting or saying anything, you should be able to comfortably say it like in front of your grandma. You show someone close to you, and then
the grandma. You should be able to say it in front of your grandmother. The grandma rule. Wow, I think we should all adopt that generally. But that's interesting. So you need to, it needs to be safe, clean content. Is that what it is? But still, what did you learn in terms of if someone comes at you online or abuses you or tries to radicalize you or influence you? What did they tell you about how to address that?
They just said that you should report. You should report and then just let it be handled. You shouldn't get involved.
Report it to maybe a parent or guardian?
Or to them, and then you shouldn't get involved.
You shouldn't get involved. Did you report your incident to your mom or anyone close to you? You did. Who did you talk to about it?
I talked to my older sister.
How old is she?
She's 15.
So she's, but what did she tell you to do?
She said that I don't get involved and I just stay away from that.
And ignore it? So what I've noticed, Lillian and Catherine, is that they talk to each other about how to solve the issue. Isn't that one of the problems, that it's teens talking to each other about what to do? Does that really help?
I think, well, it helps to a certain extent, but I think what we need to recognize is that there is very limited information on this issue, and there are opportunities that exist that can help to build the information. For example, we have the curriculums being reviewed, and we know our president has said we are going digital. So what happens to all this as we move digital as a country? And then what Joseph said is his first use of mobile phone was from his father. And within this, sometimes we think because our children don't have the phone, they are safe.
But they use other gadgets.
Yeah, they use either from their parents or they use from their neighbors or their friends. And for the parents, they should put what we call filters and parental guides. And especially the new phones are coming with gadgets and apps to protect our children.
Okay, and a little later I'll be highlighting some of the organizations that have this. Lillian, are there any telltale signs if a child is being abused online or if a child is facing harassment? It must be very tricky, but are there any telltale signs that someone's teen is facing this?
One of the telltale signs are if a young person was very interested in regards to internet, social network, whenever you bring it up, they sort of, you know, shy away from it, they stop talking about it. When they hear their phone ring or messages coming, they get very anxious. You know, they just don't want to, you know, interact in regards to the internet and all that.
Yeah.
Yes, but they also get very angry and aggressive once they've read a message. Those are some of the telltale signs in regards to social networks.
And following up on that, what can parents and teachers do? Like you're saying, the information isn't really there. You know, we're not really equipped, perhaps, as it is done abroad. And again, I stand to be corrected. So right now, what can a parent do? What can a teacher do to kind of be better equipped with this information and how to talk to their teens about it?
I think one thing parents and teachers need to know and to acknowledge is that technology is here to stay. So
and that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it has that dark side to it. Yeah.
Actually, the advantages of technology and cyberspace are just enormous. There are so many, and we should be able to help our children to get more information, to learn skills and talents and information from the internet and cyberspace. But I think what most parents and teachers have done, they have denied the fact that technology is there, cyberspace is there, and it's developing. So as parents, we need to learn, and even as we buy our children these gadgets, we have a sit-in with them and explain the dangers that are there, and also take the efforts to learn some of those apps. Because what parents say, they say I'm analog, and they don't want to learn. So it's like you can't allow your child to go out in the dark. You'll have to give them an escort or go with them. So it is the same thing in the internet. You have to take responsibility and the challenge. It is just like the same way we talk about issues around sex. You have to face it as a parent and, and as a teacher.
Have your parents talked to you about how to use the internet? Has that ever come up?
Yes.
What do they tell you?
Say you should be very keen when using the internet, because in everything there is advantages and there are also disadvantages.
Yeah. And right now, if God forbid you were to face another experience online, would you be comfortable enough to talk to your parents about it?
Yes.
You would, because they've talked to you.
Yeah.
What about you? Is it the same thing?
They just make sure I attend workshops that give me the necessary knowledge, that if just in case they don't really know. Yeah.
What more do you think, because you're the teenager right now using this phone, using these apps, what do you think teachers and parents and society can do to make sure that you're safe online? What would you like to hear them say or see them do to make you feel safer about going online?
I think just education first, because even though most people think they know how to use the internet, it's probably just social media that they know how to use. It's not how to use the internet entirely. Yeah. So just the education. Yeah. Yeah, that should be sufficient.
That would help.
Yeah.
Okay. And Lillian, what is as we begin to wind up, what is probably the most shocking case that you've dealt with when it comes to internet violence in Kenya? If you can briefly describe it for us.
I think the case that I mentioned earlier, the case that was prosecuted to the end, it was a case where one of them, an American who came into our country, to Kenya, set a pitched tent in Kenya,
the one that
the one that I just mentioned. And he managed to get some boys to come into his house. He had internet in the home, and he used to tell these boys to conduct sexual acts.
But it was prosecuted to the end, which
he was, and he was given 50 years.
Okay, 50?
50 years.
50 years.
Yes.
I think that's helpful. Then you have, as UNICEF, you're running an End Violence campaign. Very briefly, how can you tell us about it?
I think UNICEF recognizes, and also the government of Kenya through Department of Children's Services. There was a study done on violence against children in 2010. It revealed that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys are experiencing sexual violence, and about 76% of children are experiencing physical violence. So the magnitude is so huge, and it's getting worse. And this online is just a new addition. So there is a global call to end violence against children. And so the campaign is about, as much as possible, informing people about the magnitude and calling on action for everyone, including at home level, in schools, at the policy level, and all institutions. But the worst of that study was that this violence is happening at home, it's happening in schools, where we expect people to be protecting the children. So there is a campaign, it's just gaining momentum. There are documents that have been developed to distribute to all the schools through the Department of Children's Services.
Just to better equip them. I'd now like to bring up a list of organizations that are dealing with issues to do with child safety. Last week we ran a feature on Monday Special about child safety when it comes to abduction and kidnapping. And tonight, this is really part 2, winding up with child safety online. Here's a list of some of the organizations and the websites, just to give the public a better indication. We have Plan International, www.plan-international.org or .org. There's another, let's continue with the rest of the other organizations on your screens. Child Helpline 116, and that's a look at the website. A number that is working. I know that they get so many phone calls about child safety. Department of Children's Services, no working website at the moment, but I think that's the one that, Catherine, you've just mentioned. Is that the one you meant? Okay, so that's the other one. And then we have the Kenya Red Cross that also deal with these matters, so kenyaredcross.org. And then let's bring up, I think there's 1 or 2 more. We have the Child Welfare Society of Kenya that also deal with matters to do with child safety. Okay, and then of course UNICEF. Right, and the final one, this is something that we profiled last week, that you know, this was to do with the child safety, and that's the downloading. If you want to download the Save Kids mobile app, it's an ID, a web-based server that holds the child's information, which can be shared, and can be shared with law enforcement agencies and the media to alert the public of a missing child. So those are just some of the organizations. Of course, we have Watoto Watch, who Lillian represents. So that's just an indication, and I want to really thank you all for coming. Jemima and Joseph, for sharing your stories and your experiences, and I'm hoping you'll continue to be safe online and seek guidance where you're not really sure. Of course, Catherine and Lillian, thank you for the work you're doing to protect our children online. We'll take a short break, and then later on we'll sample some of your tweets on this subject. The hashtag is Monday Special KE. We'll be right back.